because I messed around and bought a computer that doesn't have a camera on it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm on my phone.
All right, guys, we're going live now. So hang on.
Okay.
Let's see what happens. All right. Check the page. I'm just gonna check the page right quick to make sure you're up there.
Yeah, I'm gonna see. I'm gonna see if you if
Okay.
it's showing.
Yep, we're there.
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
I'm gonna leave my phone alone so it won't mess up like it did last time.
Okay, it's not showing. Nope. Alrighty. All right. All right, everybody. Let me hop back over here. All right, we are live. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to click back real quick. Hey, so welcome to Shy Panther and Friends. Tonight is July 9th, Thursday, 2020. It's hot and steamy and muggy in Chicago. And if this is your first time with Shy Panther and Friends, just want you to know that the mission of the show is to uplift, empower, educate, and inspire. And we're usually here on most Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. But tonight we came on at 7:30. So just a little bit of switching up just a little bit. And our social media, you can reach out to us on Instagram at Shy Panther 829, and of course on Facebook, Shy Panther and Friends Show. And oh yeah. I gotta always remember to bring you over to my website, shypanthermediagroup.org. And when you get there, leave your email so we can reach out to you and let you know what's happening on the show. And if you have any ideas or feedback for the show, you can reach me email shypanthermedia@gmail.com. That's one word, shypanthermedia@gmail.com. All right, so we're gonna get right into the nitty gritty of the show. Tonight we have our resident rebel. We got MJ, Marcy Johnson, and we
Good
have
evening.
yes, Clarence Thomas. Welcome to the show. We're happy to have you. So,
Thank
Clarence,
you.
you wanna this is your first time here. You want to introduce yourself and give us a little background on you so everybody will know how we know you.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone that's tuned in and those who are present. Uh, my name is Clarence Thomas, and I know these young ladies because I used to work with, and then they worked for me down at the Office of Emergency Management as call takers and dispatchers. And prior to that, I'm a retired sergeant of police from the Chicago Police Department. And right now, I'm retired all the way. I just kind of do what I want to do.
That's
That's
the
the way to be.
yeah, that's the best way to live. Do what you want to do, whenever.
And
Right.
we're gonna follow suit soon. Right there.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yes.
figured you guys about due.
Yeah, we're about to.
Yeah, those years went
Absolutely.
by. Those years went by kind of fast. So, all right, now we had a couple of things that we wanted to talk about. One is violence in our communities, and the other one is reparations. And we were talking about the census, importance of the census. But the main thing I think, as Marcella pointed out to me as well, is we really need to start talking about what's going to happen with the crime in our communities. And our new superintendent put together a new plan new operation, and actually he reached back to some of the groups that they had in place before, and they dismantled because of problems with the groups that were dispatched out to the hot spots, so to speak. So, but up to recently, he hasn't unveiled exactly what that plan is. So, what do you guys think about that?
Well, if I could make the first comment on that, because it it's a program that during a period of time that I was on the department, I was a member of that particular type of unit. And one of the things that is important is that whoever they assign to make up this unit, they have to be good, uh, common sense, hardworking police officers, and they have to understand exactly what the mission is, and the mission has to be explained to them. During the period of time that I was assigned to that particular unit, it was known as the Special Operations Group. Uh, Acronym was SOG. And what we did, we went into high crime areas, and our mission was to address the violence that was occurring in that particular area. And our main focus was on criminals who were committing felony type crimes, uh, including shootings. That was what we concentrated on. What what made the unit, in my opinion, to be disbanded was somehow they changed the mission, and they started to do narcotic investigations. And that's not really what that type of unit is designed for,
Okay.
because you have a narcotic unit within the Chicago Police Department, because I worked in that unit also.
Oh, okay.
And it's unfortunate that they did that. So I'm interested in seeing exactly what this new unit is going to look like. What kind of officers are they going to be putting into this unit? And what is their mission going to be? And what kind of supervision are they going to have? Because all of that's going to play a role in how how that unit functions effectively.
Okay. So, well, during the time that you had it or you were working with the group, were you guys able to effectively bring those numbers down, or what do you think?
Well, I think that we were very successful in what we did, but you have to also take into consideration during the time that I was assigned to that unit, it was in the late 80s and the early 90s. Well, the attitudes of people were different also,
True.
and
Yeah.
that played a role. But as we moved along, we now see, and that's a whole nother story, but the attitudes of people are different now.
Yeah.
So, however way they come up with the mission for this unit, they're going to have to deal with the way things are now, as opposed to how they were back when I was a part of that unit.
Right. I think they truly have a much greater challenge now because, well, there are even more guns out there, and there are more guns, and if you ask me, it looked like there are more gangs. So I think the challenge is huge, and yeah, I'm hoping that we'll hear more about what the plan is pretty soon. So, Marcella, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I agree with Clarence. You have to have good people, and you have to have people that are not. Uh, I mean, I just think some. Let me start it. I really think sometimes uh, officers, if you're not strong, if you don't have a strong character, or should I say a common sense type of thinking, and sometimes an out of box type of thinking. And when you're immersed in a culture out there like that, sometimes you can find yourself infused into that culture. And I think this is how a lot of them wind up getting caught up in the culture in the streets as an officer. And when that started happening, I think that starts to just add to what's out there. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know how it works, but the way Clarence explained it, I mean, I agree with the fact that you have to have a good group of people who are focused on the task at hand, and what needs to be accomplished, and not get immersed in that culture. And it's the same way if you want to learn a language. You have to immerse yourself in that language in order to be able to be fluent in that language. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with that. And if you're a weak-minded person, or if you have other ulterior motives, all you're doing is adding to the fire. You're a flame that's adding to the fire. You
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
So I think with these different teams, they also still have to have a lot of. They have to have great leadership also, and you have to have the willingness to make them accountable when they become a problem. They have to have accountability, and this is why a lot of it continues to go on, because there is no accountability. And I think at this point, when people are talking about taking money away from policing, I'm kind of on the fence with that. I think they do need to be out of the school. I really do. Um, because I know, well, I think they need to be out of the schools. And I think just like a surgeon, can you
Before
hear me?
Yeah, before you move on to a different point, I wanted to add too that I think that the reason that they may have gotten caught up in the culture is that the the mission changed. You know, just like Clarence said, I think because the mission changed, so they lost focus, and that's how they became something that they were never originally supposed to be. So
Let me ask you this real quick, Clarence. When the mission changes, do you change the people? Do you change the officers?
Well, that's what I meant by, um, see, that particular unit has gone through 3 name changes, and they changed they changed the name back in the early 70s because because it used to be called the task force, and people began to object to the name because it had a connotation to it from their perspective.
mhm.
But when they changed it to special operations, they maintained the same basic people. But when you have a unit like that, it is important that those individuals who make up that unit are good streetwise police officers.
Yeah,
They have to understand the streets. They have to recognize the good guys from the bad guys. And
right.
if you are in a community, and I'll be specific, when you're in the black community, every black that you see walking down the street is not a criminal.
Right.
So you have to be careful about how you're going to approach individuals. You have to spend some time getting to know where the hangouts are for the people that are doing these types of things that you're there for. it had gotten to a point where when we went into an area, we would be assigned a district. And when we went into the district and the word got out amongst the gangbangers and those who were inclined to do certain things, all of a sudden they just disappeared because they knew we were there for them.
Yeah.
Now, not so much.
Right.
You know, that's why we got a lot of the stuff that we've got now, because I, I will I will say up front that we have a lot of police officers out in the street now who are afraid. They don't. They have never interacted with people of color.
No.
They don't know how to approach them or to deal with them. They look at everybody as a suspect.
Yep.
And these are not the kinds of people that you want uh, that are there to enforce certain types of laws and to
Right.
look for certain types of crime.
And you can't have an all-white team in an all-black area. There
Oh,
has to
absolutely
be
not.
somebody, a handful of blacks on those teams that know and who still live in these different areas. Because from where I'm sitting, the black officers are still living among us. The white officers can retreat to their neighborhood because the city is so segregated. And you can't do that. And you can't have somebody that just came from Iowa or some cornfield state who have never had an interaction with a black person or Hispanic person except for on TV. You can't do that. And you're right, they are scared. They are scared. But so are we. And
And you know,
then you know, I mean,
yeah,
I'm afraid sometimes.
yeah.
You know what I'm
You know
saying?
what we do, what we see too now is like when they recruit, they must recruit from any and everywhere because as you come across officers on the beat or on the street, they're from everywhere. I mean, you can
Yeah.
by the particular languages and everything that their native language is and everything. So yeah, you're
And you
right.
should have a
A
mix.
lot of thought should
You
be
should
given
have a mix.
who's actually policing your neighborhood. And you know, a lot of times we've heard the abuse that's happening a lot, the excessive force, and people are asking, you know, are what about training? Does training have something to do with that? Is that coming from the top to be
Yeah.
more aggressive and more um, just suspicious of black people just doing what people everybody does? You know what I mean? Just like walking while black, barbecuing while black, sitting in your car while black. Is there something to that that has
Well,
any connection to training?
well, Gail, let me say this. I have for a long time questioned the selection, the interview process, because that process should include the identification of an individual who may have some sort of bias or some sort of prejudice or
Yep.
some sort of bigotry. And you have to be able to uh, find that out before you give that person a gun and a badge,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
because you can't give everybody those types of tools. And then we get into training. And the one thing I will say about just police officers in general, one of the things that has made the situation worse is the expectation of the police officer to do things that they're not trained to do.
Right.
You know, there are things that which has really put a big burden on the police department, and it has created problems because basically they aren't trained, you know, in how to handle mental individuals, how to deal with homeless people.
Yeah,
that's not really a police function.
exactly.
No, it's not.
I
But
agree.
they are asked to deal with these types of things, and a lot of them just don't know how to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then that brings
Even
us
when you have to train it.
right, and that brings us to the question that's been on the table and no one's talked about a lot is that a lot of people don't want so many. They don't want the police in the schools with the kids. They want the resources that they really need, like the social workers and some of these other social issues that they need to be dealing with. Instead, they hired the police to go in and do what the police are trained to do, and then all of a sudden everybody's upset that they're being handled in a particular way, but that's because for this very reason that we're talking about right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I used to work in the schools. I worked part time for the board in high schools when that was my secondary job, was to work for the board part time, 4 hours a day in
Okay.
high school. And there, a lot of times we would be asked by teachers to do things that we weren't supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
And if you were not the type of police officer that would tell that teacher, no, I'm not coming in your classroom because you have a student that you want put out. That's not my function.
Right.
I'm I, I'm there to deal with if there's a crime going on in the school. I'm
Mm-hmm.
there for that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not there to deal with the average everyday school issue that you may have with a student because he's not behaving properly. He might be disrupting the class or whatever. That's an administrative issue, and it should be handled by the administration, not the police department.
Right.
But
Absolutely. So now you just traumatize that child. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? When you do that and have them removed like that. I don't care if that child is 2 or 18. You just traumatized that child. You
Exactly.
know. So and I just don't think it should be that. And I mean, just the way. But you know what? Things only occur and police are only in schools, laws are only made because people demand it. And people
yeah,
don't realize that when you constantly complain about something or you constantly because you visual your visual is impacted by something that you don't agree with, then these are the things why laws are made because people demand it and people don't understand that they're demanding it. The same way with policing, we're becoming a policing state. Everything is predicated upon the police handling this, dog barking, parking, all of this other stuff. Everything is I need police to come talk to my 4-year-old child. Ma'am, there's no officer friendly. We're not sending the police to your house to talk to your 4-year-old. That's your responsibility. And when you start demanding that, you wonder why these laws have been passed or these laws are on the table to police families, give them. Now they don't even have to have, I think in some states you don't even have to have permission for the police to even come into your house if they call. I remember when there was a call accidentally made at my brother's house and by one of the kids and hear the police at the door and they're demanding to come in. My brother's like, no, it was just a kid playing on the phone. Well, we
hmm
want to make sure that because they heard a female in the background. Well, I have grandchildren that are female and male. No, you're not coming in my house. And they demanded that they let him in or they were going to arrest him.
yeah. Well, they
I
would have
think
had to arrest me.
time.
So
But we're talking about parenting skills also and the lack
Right.
thereof because
Yeah.
yeah.
I had I had a lot of run-ins with parents who would come up to the school because their child had gotten into some sort of difficulty, either
Mm-hmm.
came to the attention of the police who was assigned to the school, and we were obligated if we had contact with them and it was not an administrative type manner, then we had to contact the parent. And the
Right.
parent would come up to the school and they would start defending the child before they even found out why they were there. And that did nothing but embolden that child.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's like, oh, hey, well, you know, mom or dad, they gonna back me up so I can go ahead and act the fool. Well, I think probably all of us probably said or told our children, if I gotta come up to the school for you, you gonna have a problem.
Right.
That's what I was told.
Yeah. And, and
Right.
I agree that a lot of it should be done with the parents. I mean, it should start at home, but is that's not been the case for many years now. A lot of kids are raising themselves, so a lot of roles that should be the parents have fallen into the police lap. You know, the police are asked to do way too many things, and as dispatchers, we get all kinds of crazy requests for the police, and eventually we have to say to the citizens that that's not a police function. Please don't respond to that.
Absolutely.
You know, because
Absolutely.
it's they would be going out on way more things if it was allowed, you know, if it was deemed necessary, just like the hang up calls, you know, definitely some of the calls can turn out to be something really tragic, but I think the majority are just kids playing or, you know, some other nonsense that gets called into the 911 center.
Well, you know, before I left, uh, Gary Gary McCarthy was the superintendent, and he had written the new dispatch policy, but he did not get any input from OEMC. Well, that would have came from me at that particular time. And
Okay.
when I saw the draft of the dispatch order, they had put a lot of burden on dispatchers to determine how the police officers were supposed to conduct themselves. And I immediately objected to that. And I told them that one of the things that we needed to do was, out of the 5 million calls we would get in any one year, that we only dispatched about half of them. I said, the dispatch policy has to be changed because we're still, even that half, we're dispatching police officers out to things that they shouldn't be doing. I
No.
said, and the public needs to understand that you don't call 911 because your 3-year-old child won't give you the remote back and they went and hid in the closet and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I don't know. There's a lot of things that have to change in this society because
And I think what it is too, a lot of the call takers are, I mean, we're in such a pressure that you have to CYA. Remember when we were told in training? So they're just not using common sense for fear of their job. But when I have to make a call, take a call, I have to make sure I make the right judgment with that call. So there's a series of questions that you must ask, and you must not be lackadaisical about asking those questions when it comes to talking to these citizens. Because there is no reason why some of these calls have to be sent over to dispatch, like you were just saying, when it comes to small children. And I remember a call one time where the child was pleading with the younger child was pleading with the mom not to call the police on the 17-year-old because he wouldn't get off the computer and go to bed. But I made a judgment call and let her know exactly how wrong that could go. And when I explained that to her, she was like, oh, okay. And I said, you got another child in the back telling you not to do this. So he's using better common sense than you are. And now the one that you're calling the police on, he's so fiery mad because now you just demonstrated to him that my mom is calling the police on me. So now they're mad. But when I explained to her what could really go wrong, she was very appreciative. And sometimes it may not be in our policy, but it's common sense. And you need to let the citizens know that. You're calling on a 17-year-old kid who's now pissed off because you called on him, and you got the younger one here crying and saying, Mom, please don't do that. They don't need to come in our house.
Right.
Yeah.
And she sounds very intelligent, but I guess she was just at her wit's end.
Right.
And instead of explaining to this kid, hey, I run this household, I pay the rent, you get off the damn computer, or I'm going to go upside your head. And excuse me, Facebook family, I'm the rebel of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
You're going to feel mother's wrath. You're not going, you don't pick up my phone and call 911. I don't do it to my grown kids now.
Yeah. So that brings us to another part of the conversation as far as managing our communities ourselves and what happens, what was being allowed to come into the community, and the crime those terrible crimes with people inside of their house, kids inside of their houses being shot to death, and they're in the house.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, that gets back to there has to be more involvement of men in the community.
Yes.
There has to be more resources in the community for our kids to be able to do something other than wanting to hang out. And I know we're going to get into a discussion about the census, and the census plays a tremendous role in the amount of resources that comes into a community.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, those who are responsible for filling out the census form, they don't fill it out because they don't understand what it means.
Right.
And it has our elected officials, for lack of a better term, I'd like to call them something else, but our elected,
This show, you're allowed to on my show.
that there has to be explained at community meetings and at block club meetings. This has to be explained, the importance of the census.
Yeah.
I don't mean to change the subject, but
No, it rolls right into. I mean, it segues right into it.
Into exactly what the census means in terms of resources that will allow playgrounds to be built, that will allow other types of programs to take place that we can get our young people involved in. And there has to also be a movement on the part of getting men involved with these youngsters who don't have male images. Nothing against you women, but they need some male images too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And even if there's not a male in your house, you, as a woman, you have to know. I know you know a male that's a stand-up guy, or a male that's very responsible, that you could have talk to your sons. We can only raise them so much, and you have to have a male influence that you admire, that would and that wouldn't mind just taking your son under the wing. But there are a lot of mentorship programs here, I believe, in the city and the suburbs, and I'm gonna find them. But I'm sure introduce them to that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the whole thing of all these things in my head of how everything has gone wrong, and not so much put on the woman, but you got women raising men, and I'm not a man. I don't know how to raise a man. All I can do is teach my son how to be respectful of women. That's all I can do. Teach him how to be respectful of women. And number one, be respectful of himself. But you have to put men in their lives that you respect and that you know are upstanding men that would even have just a conversation with them or a cup of coffee with them. Put that person in that child's life. And this is my son and this and that. No, you don't nobody have no entitlement to anyone. You're raising your children. It's not ownership. You're raising them. So make sure they have every tool that they need. And if there's no male presence, especially quality male presence, you have to seek that out. That's what was done in my family, you know, and now my brother is a minister. So you have the women in my family, my mom and my aunt, they made sure that he was surrounded by upstanding men and men in the church that could mentor him and talk to him and be around, and that they entrusted to these men because they knew they could not just raise the child to keep him off them streets. And that's what happened. And women have to start opening their minds and stop stagnating. Stop stagnating fathership. Stop stagnating the dad wanting to be with the child because you're having some emotional issues. Get your emotions in check so that child can be okay, so that boy can be okay. Yeah. And there are some women out here who have done excellent jobs with their sons.
Absolutely.
I don't take that away from them either. But when you see a kid is hanging out and doing the things that they shouldn't be, you have to employ some sort of male figure that will be a positive force in that child's life, in their male's life, and females too. Because women, these young girls, if there's a strong male in her life, a lot of this wouldn't be going on with these females, because she has to know that that strong male in her life looks at her as being worthy of who she is. So she's going to seek out a man who's worthy of who she is. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And these idiots alone that are out here. And these young girls know they self-worth. But that's us as women. We have to teach that. We have to teach that.
Clarence, you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that the issues that we're dealing with, these are generational issues.
Absolutely.
It's been, it's been going on for 3 or 4 generations, at least 3 generations, because you look now and you got grandparents that are 40 years old, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that was, I'm an old man now, but but that was just not the norm 4 generations ago.
Right.
It just wasn't. And when I worked at Cooley High School in Cabrini Green, and I would ask those female girls who were seniors, and I would ask them, well, are you going to go to college? Well, college they were doing good to graduate from high school. And I had more than one to say to me, well, I'm going to go and I guess I'll get on welfare like my mama.
Wow.
They had no incentive to do or to better themselves. A lot of them didn't. And that was because they probably didn't have the role models that they needed in order to encourage them to move forward, to want to do something better, to look at yourself and feel that you have value.
Right.
And this goes for young men too. A lot of our young men are the same way. That's why they get into these gangs, because they they're looking for someone to say, I value you, but then the gang doesn't value them either, except for what they can get them to do.
Right.
But when if that's all you see and that's all you know, then that's all you want to be.
Exactly.
That's true. Very true. What's in front of you and your influences, that definitely determines what you value.
Yeah. We are a mirror to our children. That's why if you don't want your 15-year-old smoking and you know smoking is bad for you, then you stop smoking. You can't tell them I'm grown. No, it's a bad habit that can be detrimental and cause death. So why would you do it and tell these children that? And if not, explain to that child, well, I do it because it's a habit, but it's not the same habit I want you to have. That's the type of conversation you have to have. You know what I'm saying? And then do whatever it takes so that you won't be dead, because now a child is looking at, okay, well, this could potentially kill you. What I'm going to do without you as my parent? So then you have to demonstrate something different to say, okay, I'm going to try to do something about this. But a lot of times you have to explain what's going on. And I think sometimes we feel we don't have to explain ourselves. Well, when I hit 50, I don't think I have to explain myself because they grow now. But if they, but if they're children, but if they're small children, and you're demonstrating a certain behavior that's not conducive to their surroundings, and you don't want to paint a different picture of what they should be doing or what they should be seeing, then you shouldn't do it in front of them. You just shouldn't do it in front of them.
Right.
Because we got to remember when our kids watch us.
Absolutely.
They, even when they get grown, they still watch us.
Yeah.
Because you're still their parent. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do, but they will still watch you. And then whatever you say has to match.
It does. Yeah, because they will be too happy to call you on it.
Oh yeah. And you know what? By right, as parents, as your children get older, like you said, even when they're grown. I mean, sometimes my girls will check me on some things that I'm doing, and I have to sit back and say, okay, yeah, you're right. I mean, I know as we get older, sometimes we don't have filter. We feel we can do what we want, but when they check us on that and they know that that's not my character, you know what I'm saying? Then I can look at it and be like, I'm proud because they see that, and I'm proud because they're talking to me in regards to that. And that's another thing. I started early on having a communication with my children. You've got to communicate with them. I wanted to know, what did they learn every day? What did they do? I wanted to know their thoughts, all of that. You can't push them to the side and say, I don't care. Then next thing you know, you look up because you want to do your thing. You cannot do that. You have to have conversations with them. They're little people. They're not your property. They're little people. So have conversations with them.
Well, what do you guys think? We used to have the church more involved in our lives, and now we don't. Especially definitely not at the school level. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, as far as helping the family, because that used to be the church used to really help us and be sort of like the glue for part of the glue for us.
Yeah. Well, I think some of the churches have gotten away from that. That's just my opinion. But there has to be strong leadership in that church in order for that to matter or manifest itself. It has to be. And it can't. And that leadership and the people that are handling the church, or doing the things in the church, they cannot be judgmental. Not in this day and age. You just can't.
Yeah.
You just can't. Yeah. You can't tell a male or a female that they shouldn't have a sex and they're gonna go to hell. Not in this day and age. You cannot. You have to take a whole different turn. And my thing is, you have to explain to them what are the consequences behind that action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I think their role should have
been. What is the consequences behind that?
Yeah, I think their roles should have changed with the needs of the community, of the people, of the time. And instead, I think that hasn't happened. Um, what do you think, Clarence, about that?
Well, I think that back when I was a kid, mom took me to church. She didn't send me. She
Mm,
took me.
mm-hmm.
Nowadays, and maybe two or three generations going back, parents stopped taking their children to church because parents stopped going.
Right.
And that's unfortunate because as society evolved, we got to be a society that, you know, I can remember, well, I sat in church all day.
Yeah.
And now, you know, they want church service to be over in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the whole dynamic of church has changed. And it's funny because one of the conversations that I was, me and a group of other church leaders were having with the pastor, and somebody just mentioned, well, you know, since we've been live streaming because of COVID,
mm-hmm.
and uh, the live stream only lasts an hour, he said, you know, we might have a hard time getting people back into church because church itself usually go about 2.5 hours. You know, especially if you go to Sunday school and then you go into church, you're gonna be in church about 3 hours.
I
But
know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's the interesting part.
Yeah. And you're right. It became convenient. You could just watch from your phone or watch from. You never have to leave your house. And right now, pretty much that's what had to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were told you going to church even all the way up into my 20s. I was always the ordinance for whatever church we went to, and like I said, my brother ministered, and even if we went out partying and came home at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning,
You
he
were
was like,
going to church.
"Y'all going to church, and you get your dog."
But you
Tired or
know,
not, and you will go.
what we struggle with now and what we discuss very heavily in our church, in fact, I had that discussion with another one of our church leaders, was when we get back into church, we are going to have to do something to design programs that will interest the young people that we have in our church. We got to give them something to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. You got to meet these kids where they are.
Yeah.
You
Right.
have to
That's
find
absolutely.
something where you're going to have to meet these kids where they are, meet these young people where they are,
Hmm.
and that's why I kind of admire a lot of these young ministers out here, and they have a congregation full of young people because I guess they know how to attract them. I don't have an answer for it, but you have to meet them where they are. It can't be the same old standard of church how it used to be. Something has to change. Like you said, program something different to get them involved.
Right.
Well, well, you know, we have a new pastor. He's been our pastor for a year. He just had his first year anniversary, and he's 47 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hmm.
his ideas are really new from our previous pastor who retired. Uh, and he's coming in and he's he's innovative. Uh, he's doing things that have never been done in the church,
Yeah.
in our particular church. And it's because I think a lot has to do with his age. And he is really geared towards finding out how we can bring young people into the church because that's your future. That's
Right.
your future church.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bring them and keep them there.
And
So
keep them. Right.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, I know, I mean, we could go on forever. And I know if we turn the corner to reparations,
Yeah.
we'll definitely have to have a part two for that. Um, but if I don't know, I mean, if we could just say a little bit about reparations, well, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of reparations?
Well,
Uh,
well, tell us what we were talking about before Clarence came on. I mean, the information that you found.
oh, what I found was that the bill was introduced last year, like January 3rd,
Right.
but
Yeah, I thought so.
it was only introduced to just do research. It wasn't they weren't they were just going to look at the research and just kind of, let me see if I can find it really fast. They were looking at like three different points of it, and one was to admit that they took part in it, that United States was at fault for mistreating us. And then let me see, I can find it really fast. Okay, I can read it now. The bill established a commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. And then it said that they wanted to examine slavery and discrimination in the colonies and in the United States from 1619 to present and recommend appropriate remedies. And then finally, they looked at 3 points, and one was the role of federal and state government in supporting the institution of slavery. Number two was forms of discrimination in public and private sectors against free slaves and their descendants. And number three, lingering negative effects of slavery on living African Americans and society. And that was introduced to the House January 3rd, 2019. And I haven't heard a word since. So
Yeah, that's the bill I was talking about. But like you said, it was just to study it, huh?
yeah, yeah.
You know,
So
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
no,
Well,
go ahead.
well, what I found was if they pass reparations, I'm not sure who put this together, but that would mean 1.4 million to 4.7 trillion is the dollar amount that they should be looking at, which would be a mere $153,000 for each Black American. Personally, I think that's a slap in the
You
face.
said
It should be
153,000 for each
per Black American.
descendant. Okay.
And when I looked at the numbers, what they gave the Japanese was what 3.6 billion. I told you something like that, about 3.6 billion. And then each 20, and as of 2019, that would be yeah about 3.6 billion to the Japanese. Hold on.
So
Go ahead, Clarence.
Clarence, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that what has to also be looked at is the lack of generational wealth.
Right.
We have lost out on a lot of wealth as a result of going back, starting with slavery and coming all the way up. And people don't want to admit that uh, because we were enslaved for 400 years, that that negated a lot of generational wealth that we were not able to take advantage of. And when we look at now, we're starting to hear about things like Tulsa, Black Wall Street. We're starting to hear
Mhm.
about other areas where Blacks had uh, owned property and started to build up businesses and banks and so forth. And then they got raided and burned down. And as a result of that, and then we throw in redlining right here in Chicago.
Oh,
We,
absolutely.
we had redlining right here that caused a lot of blacks to lose property that
Yeah.
they called themselves, that they thought they were buying, and come to find out they weren't. Well,
Right.
see, whites have never had that, many whites have never had that issue. They have benefited from generational wealth because their ancestors were able to pass wealth down to them. We were not
Exactly.
necessarily in a position to do that because they didn't let us own anything.
Yeah, they were able to get a foothold and just build and build and build and build off.
Absolutely.
And we
Exactly.
were able
Exactly.
to, every time we developed something over a period of time, it was burned, destroyed, and we were
Or
killed.
taken. Or taken.
Yes.
Yeah. And let me correct those numbers. Actually, Japanese was given $1.6 billion, but it would have averaged out to 3,460 3,460 in this day and age, if that was to be given to them. And we're talking about only maybe 700 and some thousand Japanese that were here in the USA. So they got $1.6 billion of reparation.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys think that the reparations should come in the form of cash? Or what do you think? Should it come in another form or?
I wouldn't want cash. I wouldn't want cash. I wouldn't want cash.
No, because one of the things that I think blacks have to be, they have to be educated on what wealth means.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And right now, many of us, because I'm black, I say us, many of us, we look at having a pocket full of money as having wealth. Oh, absolutely not, because you're going to go spend that. And you're going to spend that with somebody who is building wealth and who is not black for the most part.
Exactly.
So no, I agree with you on that, Marcella. I would rather see it in the form of, we can go back to 40 acres and a mule. Well, I don't necessarily want the mule, but give me the 40 acres because that's land.
Yeah.
Land will never lose its value.
Nope.
Always valuable.
And the thing you can take it further with that, with land, the things that you can grow on land. What did they resurface and start doing now? Hemp. You can grow hemp on your land.
Yeah.
And I would employ black people if you have land, the soil has to be checked. You have to bring in somebody to see if it'll even grow. But right now, you want to get into that business, which even though these laws here in Illinois was created by women and women of color for us to be able to get into the cannabis business. And now that has become problematic. People are not getting their due. Minorities are not getting their due. But having land, let me go back to having land. You can grow hemp on that land. You can find out if you have oil on that land, where you can have one of the oil companies like BP or somebody come in and survey their land and see if there's oil on that land. And if there is oil on that land, you can rent that out to them. There's a woman who rented it out to them for like $200,000 a year for them to drill on her land to see if she has oil. There's a lot of things that you can do when it comes to land. And I was just watching a seminar on tax liens from a young lady here in Chicago, how she goes and she buys tax liens. And a lot of times you're acquiring property with these tax liens. You can either resell it or you can put something on and produce it. Small housing. If you got land, my husband's family got land in Mississippi. With that land, you can build tiny houses on it. That's the going thing right now, where you can build tiny houses on that land. They can buy a patch of that land or rent out a patch of that land for their tiny houses. And most of them, they hook trailers to it where they can go on to the next thing. You can rent out that space to them. It's so much that you can do with that. So you're right, Clarence. I will want not my 40 acres. I want 200 acres or 100 acres and get out of my face. Period. Give me my reparations. You know, I don't need money. But wealth also comes with being knowledgeable of things that can take place in order to get you that reparations, in order to get you that land, in order to get you that money. That's what wealth is. It's knowledge first. Knowing.
Right.
Arming yourself with that knowledge in order for you to be able to carry out the task at hand in order to have generational wealth. And a lot of times, and I had to experience myself, you can't wait on people around you, other family members and stuff. You have to do that yourself. You have to do that yourself. I mean, there's a thing that's going around called susu, where you're putting in $500, and by the time it reverts back to you, you're bringing two people in, and it reverts back to you. Now you gained this $4,000 or $3,500, and it stays within your community. It started with Africans, but a lot of cultural people do it. They put money in a pot. Whoever draws from that pot, that money goes to them. And guess what? That's how a lot of Hispanics found property in these different areas. They're self-preserving. They're staying within their confines as a people, and they're growing.
Right.
And they're buying property throughout the city.
Right. And that was actually something that Marcella and I had, when we first were coming on, before we came on, we were talking about, we're going to have to save ourselves. We know that.
Absolutely.
We know that. And I'm
not looking for nobody to give me nothing.
Okay. Because first of all, with reparations, that was a study that they just proposed, and that was a whole year ago, and you haven't heard a thing since. And I think that kind of thing would continue to go around in that circle. And only recently, since we're in the middle of a revolution, that I think that it could decently be looked at again, like seriously looked at, and something proposed seriously about it, because I believe that is disgrace that no one has made a credible proposal on doing something to repair what has happened to us as descendants of slaves. I think that
Gail, you also have to, and I think we have to admit that in order to, if you start doing this investigation, start doing these studies, you're going to find that the majority of the major companies and industries in this country were built off of slave labor.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's one reason they really don't want to get into that, because then they have to turn around and admit that my wealth was gained years ago when I got started through slave labor. And they don't want to admit that. So they're going to fight it.
That's true.
I believe that.
I think we have one of the largest body in the Black Caucus, and at this time, in this era, I'm embarrassed by them, because shame on them that all of this is still going on. Shame on them. Things come across them, they can not sign off on these loans. I know that, I mean, not loans, but these laws and things like that come across them. They are one of the largest bodies in government, and shame on the Black Caucus that they have not demonstrated any sort of growth when it comes to Black people. It's almost like free for all. Everybody do whatever they can to survive, or everybody do whatever they can, because the average Black person don't want a handout. don't want no handouts from the government. I don't need no handout from white people. I don't need understand. I understand you with wherever we work and stuff, they majority rules, but I don't need your handout. I don't need your handout. I need you to leave me alone and let me prosper and know that I'm equal to you. And even if you don't know that, leave me alone. That's my
Right.
thing. Leave us alone.
Don't,
We are very capable of taking care of ourselves and preserving. You
Mhm.
all destroyed a lot of that. But leave us alone. Leave us alone to our businesses. Leave us alone.
And see, they know that. See, it's not a foreign language to them. They
Exactly.
understand that if we are given the same opportunities
Right.
that they have had, we will excel because
Exactly.
uh, you see it in certain areas. Um, you see where I'll take athletics as an example. A elite athlete is determined by his ability, and whenever a black gets involved in a particular athletic field, he excels, and you see it. And now I think they look at the last athletic field that uh, was for a long time. It was Lily White was hockey, and
Mm.
now you've got blacks involved in
Yeah.
hockey, and they're starting to excel in hockey. And now,
Exactly.
and you hear people, they'll get on social media and they'll make certain comments,
Mm-hmm.
but or gymnastics.
Yes.
Look at gymnastics.
Yeah.
Once we got exposed to it, hey, we can do. Our little black kids have been doing that forever,
Right.
but they
Oh,
didn't get.
we got to. You're right, and not to cut you off, we got a whole group of blacks that do surfing.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Right.
nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
females and males. Yeah.
So,
So, and I don't know. I just don't get it. I just don't get it, and I'm not worried about getting. All I want is my equality. That's it. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
the time
Get-
is now that I agree about the Black Caucus. It's just unbelievable that they could be there, and they've been there for quite a long time, and they don't have enough power. They haven't stood up for reparations, not in the way that they should have by any means, as far as I'm concerned. And it's time. It's time. I don't think that we should waste a moment. What's the problem? And I know that, of course, these companies they're gonna have to own up to what has happened and
Yeah.
how they gain their fortunes. Of course, they have to do that because it almost every case where reparations were considered, I believe everyone who had a hand in the I don't know what do you want to call it? I'm so annoyed by it. But everyone who had a hand in that denigration of those people, they have to own. They
Yeah.
all have to own up to it. So I mean, I can't even imagine how many would have to speak up. But it says to me that even though the reparation amount, it would just grow from there because all these companies that benefited would have to put in the pot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would.
That's true.
Absolutely. And let me remind you all of two things. One, I agree as far as the Black Caucus is concerned. Uh, I think as long as they have been there,
Yeah.
they should have accomplished a lot more than what they have. They haven't really accomplished anything.
No.
When we and the other thing, we look at the fact that take Hidden Figures as an example.
Mm-hmm.
This was something that 5 years ago we didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
But here, these Black women were, they were better than computers. It was amazing. And the fact that the only way that John Glenn came back from the moon was because of the calculations that were done
Absolutely.
by a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
But you never heard anything about it. And when we start to investigate our history, and you start to dig up things, you're going to find that there are a whole lot, which is getting back to these large companies.
Right.
You're going to find that a lot of these large companies are in existence because of the contributions of somebody Black.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing how many of us, our stories are just have gone untold. We just
Right.
don't know
Absolutely.
anything about and the importance that they contributed to our our lives, and something that we all the benefits and the comforts that we have today is a lot of it is because of what a Black person has contributed, and
Yeah.
without that we wouldn't have a lot of those conveniences. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That absolutely, Gail. But before I go, because I have to duty calls, I
okay.
just want to let people know that just some of the things that are going on around. When I said we have to self-preserve and do some things on our own and start looking at how we can better ourselves, and we have to support each other. We really do. We have to support each other. And there are some things going around. I'm trying to find it right now that I got on Messenger from my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is, it's called blackownedchicago.org, and it looks like it is a app that shows you every black-owned business here in Chicago. So there's no excuse not to support. And I'm going to send this to you, Gail, but not to support a black community. We have a black credit union right over there on 54th and Wentworth. I think it's called Southside Community. We have several black banks here in Chicago. That one a Ghanaian family opened up, and I believe there's one in Oak Park. There's an all-black bank. I think Seaway is no longer a bank. I think they're moving towards more so some sort of a savings federal or credit union or something like that.
Okay.
Just a whole host of restaurants. And, we got to get out of the social part and hairstylists and barbers that we only look at as viable businesses. But there are other viable businesses that black people own. Start supporting them.
Could you send that to me also?
Yeah, I
Okay.
will.
All right.
And Clarence, guess what? I just started a men's beard oil. I'll get it to you.
A what?
A men's beard oil.
Oh, okay.
Created a men's beard oil. Right. So it's probably going to filter into more products for men, because I just felt that commercial products were not. I got a husband and a son with beards, and they love it. Commercial products, men need to take care of themselves.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. When I tell people that I go to the spa and I get my feet done and I get my nails done, and
Right. Yeah.
and some people look at me kind of crazy. I'm like, well, hey, you got to take care of yourself.
Definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
I think she froze. Marcella, are you froze? Frozen? Yeah, I think she is. Oh, you back. You froze for a good minute.
Oh, I was saying that we have a lot of entrepreneurs even where we work, and I think we should support. I think we should support each other and stop always talking about, well, your price is too high. How would you know? Who are you comparing me to?
Right.
I hear that all the time. Your price is too high. Do you guys tell Amazon that? Do you tell people who travel? Do you tell Travelocity that their prices are too high? I mean, come on, we have to have more than just, like I said, barbers and stylists and things like that. We can have a whole array of different businesses that we do. You have social media marketers, branders, people who do that. You have people now who I mean, just a whole host of different people, financial analysts and things like that. You know what I'm saying? So we need to start support. You need to start supporting them. And even when it comes to contractors, Gil will tell you, I will go to the end of the earth to seek me out a black contractor to do work at my house. I have always done it. And I have not had the best experience, but I haven't had the best experience with anybody else either. So what is that to say?
Yeah, you just eliminate bad experience and go find you another one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when as a black you own a business, start with integrity. And I think this is why a lot of us shy away. Own up to your mistakes. Make sure your work is exceptional, and your price is your price. Make sure your work is exceptional and not try to get over. Because as a woman, I've had them try to get over me as a woman.
Yeah,
integrity about your business,
Right.
and I think it will go a long way.
Yeah, it does. Because if they provide great work and they stand behind it, then the word of mouth will only get them.
Absolutely, word of mouth is the best promotion ever.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know?
Well, I have enjoyed you all. It was. I thank you for the invite, but I'm gonna go eat now because I have not eaten yet.
Oh, well, sorry I interrupted your dinner, but thank you.
No, that's all right. I was at my little part-time job today, and I got off at 7, so I came in and I'm
okay. So it worked out perfect for you.
Yeah, it did.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful. It was good to see you. Hopefully you'll be back.
Look, well, listen, if you invite me back, I'll come back.
Oh, definitely. I will because we got so much to talk about still, and we will get to it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Clarence. Thank you, Marcy, so much. And you guys have a great night. Thank you, Facebook folks.
Thank you, Gail.
All right.
Thank you, Gail. See you
Good
later.
to see you, Clarence. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.